How's it going, everybody? Darby here, joined today with Chris Lannon. Chris is the veteran software engineer, and he's the chief AI officer at ProfitLab.ai. Chris has been doing some pretty cool automations in a platform called Make.com, building out AI workflows and apps. Doing some pretty cool stuff on the tech side. So I wanted to invite Chris in here to share a little bit about what he's up to and what he does with the community, because I know there's a lot of interest in making your own AI apps right now. Then we have a demonstration of kind of how this looks from behind the scenes and putting together a workflow into an automated app. Chris, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I've been a software engineer for over 25 years, and I've worked at my career. I've had my career in places like General Instrument, Motorola, Hewlett Packard, Transcore, Mitchell International, and Sharp Healthcare. I'm an entrepreneur and an Amazon brand owner. I've been doing that since 2018. Have a best-selling brand in the 3D printing space. I've been experimenting with Jasper since 2021, and at that time I became a member of the community and been contributing there as much as I can. Started ProfitLab.ai in April of 2023, and I've been consulting. Was thinking I was going to retire from software, but then when this AI stuff happened, I kind of became interested in it again and started working on some automation and software products, and built out some pretty elaborate auto scripting workflows. Got really interested in that, and then started doing some automations with Make.
well, yeah, and I think you took the whole idea behind the auto scripting process and have like really expanded on it to the point where it's really improved on how we initially started just doing the prompt engineering and command stacking. And I think from your background in software development, it's giving you a much better perspective on how to work with the AI tools and create some really cool automations at that front. So I'm curious, when we're talking about Make.com and setting up these AI automations, like how would you explain that to a fifth grader, and like essentially what you're doing when we're talking about APIs and making calls and doing all of the technical stuff, but like ultimately, like what are we going to be demonstrating here today? And is this something that the average entrepreneur, business owner these days can do themselves with just a little bit of understanding and context to how these tools work together?
Yeah, normally you had to have some pretty in-depth technical background in order to be able to create something that would interact with an API, an application programming interface. You had to code it, but now with these no-code tools like Make, it's just a matter of dropping a module in and filling in some properties that correspond to what the API calls require. And you can, in the case of Make, you just, in addition to setting up a normal automation, you just add the AI module into it. So you can add intelligence to the automation that way. And just about anybody can do it. You just have to kind of be able to read the API documentation a little bit. Today, we're going to be creating a version of the Claude module. A Claude module already exists in Make, but it's got some timeout issues. So I'm going to create one from scratch and basically show you how to get around the timeout issue. But yeah, I mean, if you can read technical documentation a little bit, there's really not much more you need to know other than just being able to follow the technical documentation and
Cool.
corresponding that to the Make module.
Yeah, and I think like this type of stuff can get like, especially from like a non-techie perspective, can be a little overwhelming even thinking about it. So I think demonstrating it is why I'm excited for what we're going to see today, is just like how you approach just something in Make with all these no code tools that are coming out there. Like it is getting so easy to plug in and make your own really simplified AI apps. And I've been really impressed with what I've seen other people create in this space over the past few months, even. And I know you're working on some workflows that are producing books at this point, and probably some other really cool stuff that I'm have no idea about, but I know you got some cool stuff in the works.
Yeah, I've put together some pretty elaborate make automations. That one of them is a book writing automation. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that, and I'm going to be slapping a front end on it and making it a product. So it'll be a product that can walk people through writing a book. And then some of the modules in there are going to be playing different roles, like an editor, a publisher, and you basically go through the whole process, interacting with those roles in the process of writing a book. Then I've created some other things. I'm working on some discovery work for basically converting podcasts to a transcript and then pulling out the important nuggets for newsletters, some content creation, syndication workflows. But today, what I wanted to demonstrate was you've been putting together some apps in Rubber, which is basically a front end that allows you to stack different prompts together. I'd like to show you how to create a make automation that basically you can do the same thing, where you put a web form on the front end, trigger this make automation, and then get a web reply from the automation, similar to the way that Rubber works.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see this. So if you want to go ahead and share your screen, start walking through what you've got.
Sure, let's see here. Can you see my screen all right?
Yeah, I see the make.
Okay. So basically, this is the Anthropic API documentation. We're going to go through and we'll be plugging in. Basically, it shows you here how to create a completion. And we'll go through and string along some make automation modules that allow you to do a Claude completion. We'll have a form on the front end, do a little bit of cleanup of the data, run it through the Claude module, and then have a web reply on the other side. So I have your buyer's brief blueprint. I put together a web form here that's it would be similar to a Rubber front end that you've been working with. So I have the recipe here. I'll plug that in to make. So we'll create a new scenario, which is essentially an automation. And we normally we string modules together, but there's a Claude module in here.
We're talking about Claude in this case, but you can also plug into OpenAI and as well through this, right?
Yeah, there's OpenAI. There's an OpenAI module too.
Right. Cool.
So you can choose either one. You can create a completion with Claude or ChatGPT, or essentially anything else that has an API. I'm going to go ahead and delete this module, but in here, it allows you to connect to the API, but there's no specification for a timeout. And I think any request that you try to do with this module times out within a minute. So if you're running a recipe that requires more than a minute of processing time, you're kind of out of luck with this module.
Why do they have the timeout in place? Is it to stop people from just generating limitless amounts of content, or what's that there for?
It's usually just a server setting that protects the server's resources from an extraneous amount of requests, basically. But in that particular module, they won't let you override the timeout. So we have to do an HTTP request, which is one of these things. and you can select from these. We're going to do a make API request here. So I'll leave that for now. And then what we're going to do is a webhook to do the initial well, I'll start with a variable. So let's do variables first. Set multiple variables. So we'll make these correspond to what's in your recipe here. So we got product, segment, niche, and context.
So you're adding each one of those as its own variable inside of this. Okay.
Oh, wait, this is get.
Niche
This is
is
the wrong one.
Missing an E.
This is the wrong one. It's
Okay.
we want to set multiple variables.
You don't have to do the brackets in this case.
No, these are just the variable names.
Got it.
So let's say diet and exercise routine just to start. Make this women over 50. Health and fitness. We'll just start there before we slap a front end on it. And then these will connect automatically. And then in the following modules, you can add the variables that you set here. We'll do one more set variable. We'll rename this module to variables. We'll call this the recipe. And we'll plug your recipe in. And I added at the bottom to render it in HTML in the prompt. Well, that didn't work. Hang on a second. Okay, so in your recipe, we can add.
What did you just do there on the formatting?
Oh, I copied over to a text document and just cut and paste so that it would reformat these so we could read it. So I need to link these together. So the first module, we're going to set the variables. The second module, we can plug the variables from the first module in. I don't know why it's not showing up there. Oh, I know why. Hang on, let me get rid of this. Okay. So I'm selecting these variables from the first module and I'm putting them in your recipe.
You move the clock around a few times. Is that where it starts at?
Yeah, that's where it starts. And you can schedule this. So down here, you can set the schedule for when it, like if it runs every 15 minutes or whatever. But since we're going to do a webhook, we're just going to run it. We're going to trigger it with a webhook. So this clock really doesn't matter for now.
For people that are writing blog posts auto, on autopilot, are they like running these types of automations every 15 minutes, for example, and it's just triggering it with new research or keywords and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So for mine, one of my automations, I pull from an RSS feed, and you can have it check the RSS feed like every 15 minutes for new items in the feed. So that's basically how you would do that. And then you could have it write articles based on what's in the news feed. Okay, so I got the first two variables set up. Since I cut and paste into the tool, the variables, since I cut and paste your prompt in, there's a good chance that there's some escaped characters in there that need to be cleaned up. The line feed is one of them that Anthropic doesn't handle too well. So I do a search and replace. This is a line feed. I basically do a search and replace for the line feed. And what
Slash
I'm clean,
n.
yeah,
Okay.
backslash n is basically a code for a new line.
Okay.
And I'm cleaning up the recipe. So I'm just basically doing a search and replace, and this somehow cleans up. If there's a carriage return line feed, it makes it a line feed. And then it also doesn't like double quotes. So I'm going to replace a double quote with a single quote.
Is that Anthropic kind of in particular?
Yeah, I have to prepare it for Anthropic. It basically hates escape characters. So I'm going to clean up the text that's outputted from this one to clean up the double quotes. Now I'm going to do an HTTP. So basically I'm creating a new connection to Anthropic. And I created an API key. I get the key, hang on. I'm gonna have to get it from another module. Well, now I'm having problems.
Not taking the key.
I'm not able to access the information I had pulled up here. Let me just do a demo of what I have. So I have it. I have the whole scenario built here. And then this buyer's blueprint form is set up to call this scenario via a webhook. So basically the form submits to this first module here.
Mm-hmm.
And I can run it once and trigger it with the form. So let's go ahead and do that. Do you have any ideas of what you want to put in there?
I mean, we could just say like the SideHustle game. Uh, you know, young entrepreneurs. Party game or game night or something like that. Yeah. And then just, physical and digital party game to pitch ridiculous business ideas. Where's the form set up? Is it something you could set up in a lot of different?
Yeah, it's on my computer. So it's a local form, but there's a website called pform. It's pform.org, and you can generate a form and then add your different fields in here. It's a form builder, and you can save it to your local computer, or you can put it up on a web server. And I built this. Basically, I had ChatGPT build it. So now I've got this set up in the background. It's waiting for the web form to call it.
When you say you had ChatGPT build it, you asked ChatGPT to write the code to format and create the form, and then you just uploaded that to the P form.
I asked ChatGPT to build it based on the fields that I needed, and I told it specifically I wanted it to have this activity spinner,
Okay.
and then I told it I wanted it to submit to this webhook. When this is done, I'll show you what the web address for this webhook is, but basically the form submitted to the webhook. I've got the cleanup happening here, and then it's running it through the Claude module right now. You can see it kind of moving a little bit. And then this webhook's going to return a response to the form. I'll go into this Claude module so you could see exactly where you need to enter the timeout value to get around the 1 minute timeout. And then I also have instructions on how to put this whole thing together. I'll provide you with a link for that.
Thank you.
So it's still operating here.
While it's doing that, Chris, I have a question about knowledge bases and building that. If that's something that you can do inside of the Rubber app, where you could upload a handful of different files for extra context. Is that something that is like a simple addition onto one of these workflows?
That's a little more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
It requires to be able to upsert documents into a vector database. So I believe there are some modules in here where you can do that kind of thing. It's just a little more complicated than this. With Claude, you've got 100K token limit, so you can upload a lot of those documents directly into Claude. And you can do that with this API too. So here's what it came out with, which you're used to seeing, right?
Yeah.
Let me show you this Claude module. This is what I was trying to build earlier. So basically, according to the API documentation, you create these, you put these in the header. There's an accept with it, and it's a JSON value, which is a data type. And then the name of the version, the Anthropic version. You have a content type, which is a JSON format as well. And then the API key for your Claude interface. And then it's going to return JSON, and you're going to want to parse that JSON. But this right here is what you're sending to the interface. So the max tokens is 20,000. I could go all the way up to 100,000 here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the prompt format. Basically, I'm just inserting the text from this replacement, which is the cleanup I did on this recipe. So that's how you get around the timeout. Oh, the timeout values down here. You have to set, that's a 5-minute timeout as opposed to a 1-minute timeout. And on the webhook, it's pretty easy. I just wrap the response in an HTML wrapper. And this is the completion from, this is the actual response from Claude. So basically it's outputting an HTML document, and the head is the product service plus the buyer's brief.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
And then let me show you my book, the one that I did for my book writer API.
I imagine with
automation.
Like these sorts of scenarios inside of Make, I mean, the possibilities are pretty endless for the different types of flows that you could set up.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can get pretty elaborate. Like this one, took quite a while. I can walk you through this if we've got time.
I have a question from Bruce. Can you ask Claude to output in HTML format?
Yeah, that's basically what I did here. So in the recipe at the bottom, I told it, please provide this report in a well-organized format, HTML document, ready to be displayed in the browser. So what's happening over here is I had to put the document tags around the response, but the response is actually in HTML. And we can't look at it now, but normally, I could run it again. Let's see. It's going to take a while to run, but I'll show you the data that comes out of this when it's done. I'm running it again. So for the book writer, basically I have a Google Sheet that it's pulling from different ranges in the Google Sheet. And in there is the book. I've got the author role, the type of book, the title of the book, the audience, the target audience, reading level, and description of the book. And it basically runs through, you can set whether or not you want it to create a description for the book or an outline. And based on that, it goes on these various branches. So it'll go through, it has a Claude write a description. And then from the description and the title, it'll run through this whole thing, and it'll write an outline for the book. And then when it's done with the outline, it goes down this branch. I'm actually storing the various things in. There's a data store as well that's built into Make. So you can store values in addition to variables you can store in a database. So from the outline, I know how many chapters there are, and I can iterate through the number of chapters, and I have it. Here's the chapter prompt here. It basically creates one chapter at a time. This is Claude writing the chapter. And since Claude doesn't really format it very well, I have ChatGPT rewrite the chapter, since I think ChatGPT is a better writer, but it basically rewrites the output that Claude gave it and stores it.
You have like
And
a
then
tone of voice inside of here too, as part of at the beginning of this to.
Yeah, it's an author role. So like I can say, expert psychologist, and it'll write it as an expert psychologist. And then at the end, it takes some information about the author and that writes a preface for it, for the book. I have Claude do that. And then it converts the file to HTML and saves it to Dropbox as a complete document. So it saves an HTML version, or it's a markdown version, and then an HTML version. So it gives me, at the end, it gives me a document that is the entire book.
We say entire book. About how many words is this workflow generating?
About 30,000 words. I actually want to have it break down the chapters and sections and expand on those to make the book longer. So right now it's about 30,000 words. I'd like it to be a bit longer than that. So here's the output from the buyer's brief. The completion. So you see this is in HTML.
Mm-hmm.
See if I can show you some other. Here's an example of an RSS feed, social media post. I have a RSS news feed. It shortens the URL. So it pulls from this feed here. It's just a raw news feed of resin 3D printing or 3D printing news stories. It grabs the URL to the source story and shortens it. And then, so this one is assume the role of a 3D printing expert, consider the following. And it gets the title, the description, and the summary of the news story. And it writes a viral tweet, make it 30 words or less, include emojis and hashtags, first person voice. And then it posts to Twitter or X and Facebook page. And then it does some evaluation. Well, I have another one where it does an evaluation on whether or not this news story would be of interest for a newsletter. But this one just saves it to a Google Sheet.
Are you doing newsletters with this? I mean, it seems like a pretty good use case for how to operate a newsletter or aggregate that content.
Yeah, I have. Well, I've started working on a newsletter automation that several people were interested in, and it basically pulls from a bundle of RSS feeds. One of them is news like this one, but there's also if you have product pages, you can create an RSS feed from that. Any like blog post areas, you can create RSS feeds from that, and you can bundle them all together. So you have news, product, blog posts, and then you can basically pull from all three of those to create the newsletter in addition to creating your own. But I was looking at having, basically you would write a blog post that you wanted to go into the newsletter, and then the automation would pick it up from there and pull it into a newsletter. So it was the same kind of thing, basically, where you have an assistant, an AI assistant, walking you through creating a newsletter, but you could also add your own handwritten stories to it as you're generating it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. The question about the OpenAI API, does it allow access to URLs like Bitly?
There may be a way that you can do it. I mean, you can do it with a plugin through ChatGPT, but automating it would be a little more difficult. You might be able to do it through a function call, because apparently function calls in the OpenAI API allow you to access the plugins that are available in ChatGPT. This one's actually just writing a story from a description, but there's also scraping in here. So you can go to the original URL and do a scrape with this scrape ninja thing. So you can do it with a real browser, or you can do it on the back end. So the way I would do that is take the original URL from this RSS feed and plug it in here. So you can put the target URL in there and then scrape it and get the data from that URL and run it through ChatGPT to write a complete story.
So right now, just looking through the comments, is you're writing the story based on the title and the description, but not the actual URL. So it's kind of like a blurb about what the story is probably about.
Right. Correct. But with the scraping thing, you could go to the original URL and scrape it and get more context.
Could you see a use case for like scraping, let's say, like top real estate listings in a city in Florida, and going and getting all the information around like a town, and then populating a website with a blog? Like, is that kind of, that's where I'm going with, is like, can you scrape information and like create whole websites from the information that you're having it scrape to be like niche and like localized content?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could do that pretty easily. I think you'd probably want to scrape the data first and then store that somewhere, maybe in Airtable or something, and then pull the data from there. So you want to start with the raw data.
Okay. But if you assuming you got like all the data inside of an Airtable, or I guess a Google Sheets could possibly work. But
yeah, Google Sheets is great for
you could go
doing
scrape
less sophisticated things like that.
So like go scrape all the information, and just for like any kind of blog though, or whatever someone wanted to build a site around, they would go find and scrape the information, and then they could then take that information and then rewrite content based on it, and then rewrite new blogs and all of that. And then I'm assuming there's some way to, if I have a Webflow or a WordPress, to send the content from that Airtable or Google Sheets to my blog to prepare to post.
Yeah, I actually have one in here. where I'm actually sending. There was one in here where I'm sending to basically a WordPress site. Let's see. So for this one, for example, I could add so in here you can actually create a post in WordPress. There's a plugin for WordPress that goes in the work that you install on WordPress, and it accepts these actions from Make. So you can basically create posts, create a category, update comments, monitor comments. But yeah, if you wanted to create entire WordPress blogs, you could do it with this.
Pretty cool to see what you can do with this, with the right workflows. If anyone here that's watching live, and anyone watching the recording, curious if you guys are getting any ideas about ways that you might want to make your own automations and Make for your own business or potential ventures. Love to kind of hear where you guys are. It's giving any creative ideas for what you can do with it now. I just got some wheels turning in my head, I know, but I mean, I think it makes it pretty simple to set this stuff up. It's cool to see behind the scenes. Thank you for showing us the just kind of over the shoulder look here, Chris.
Sure, you're welcome.
Is there anything you haven't tried yet that you're excited to try, or that you haven't figured out if it's possible yet, but might be a cool kind of like next level automation?
One thing I really would like to play with is some of the tree of thought processes. There's a framework that guides AI. You can Google it. It's called the Tree of Thought framework, and it basically is a way of prompting where you get the LLMs to kind of run through a thought process, and that generates a context for them. To basically, it creates a memory basically where they can they have a history of logic that they can use to come up to solve problems and be more creative. And I'd kind of like to chain a bunch of different personalities together and have them interact. Some, like some automated agents that could interact, like two philosophers discussing a problem would be a good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe some famous people in history solving a problem.
I've seen some people talking about that and training it with like your own, even if it's just your own process or framework for how you would approach a problem, and then using that version of you with AI behind it to like replicate like how you would approach solving a problem like by itself. But now you're talking about having it talk to other versions that are all thinking through this tree of thoughts and kind of having a conversation between AIs to.
Yeah, and in a scenario, you could string them together and have them iterate on an idea. So basically, you could have a loop set up where they're discussing a problem and coming up with solutions to a problem until they come to a consensus, and then they exit the loop. But I'm really really excited to get this book, the book automation, get a front end on it, and see what I can do with that. There's some people that are that have some products out there, but I think I could do, even if I add something, I could probably even add something like the chain of thought or train of thought to that process and make it better.
You see like wanting to productize it as its own SaaS and kind of building its own like a individual business off of that one particular use case, or is this something you want to apply like for consulting roles that you're working with people on?
It would be an end product, so it would be an assistant that would help people write books, and then suggest the rest of the services that go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you could even have it act in separate roles too. Where you go through the writing process, then you go through the editing process, and then you go through the publishing process, and it would generate all the promotion materials and help you do a launch, and have all the different phases of start to finish, writing a book, basically. But it would
How far,
be an end product that people would use, and they would buy credits. So like if they could so they could buy like one book credit for a certain amount of money, and it would basically
mhm.
just walk them through the whole process.
How far away do you think you are for that version of the product being out? Obviously we do like books and stuff inside of our community, but I think we have some folks that would be eager to test that out whenever it's ready, just to give people an idea.
I'm hoping to have something done by the beginning of December.
Cool.
And definitely I'll have something that people can test out if they're willing to help me out with testing. I'd love to have that and get some feedback as well.
Cool. Yeah, whenever you're ready, just let me know and we can make a post out and see if we get some user testers. Probably have some here in the crowd that would be willing to test it out. Do you see we have an idea? Bruce, I would really love to create an app that creates the copy for a full product sales page with 15 sections. Would like the app to work through the sections one at a time, share 3 versions, and have the user choose or combine the best one before moving on to the next. Then at the end, output the sales page copy with each section listed out. Is that something you see here that you'd be able to do instead of make, is have it do it, then user steps in, iterates on it, and then moves it on? Does that sound like it's a doable thing with this?
Yeah, that would be broken out into probably 2 steps, or multiple runs of the same automation, because you have the user interaction there.
Mhm.
So it would, instead of just having someone type in information once and then having something at the end, basically you would have an approval process in the middle. So maybe you have the web interface walking you through the different steps, and then you're running either separate automations or the same automation through the process. But that would be relatively easy, I think, to do with this.
Cool. Yeah, like you said, I mean, like there's pretty much, I mean, it seems like a limitless amount of things that you can do here, especially all the new ways we're finding AI is what it's capable of doing. It's going to be interesting to see how, or I guess what people create with tools like this over just the next few months, but even the next year, where we're coming up on about a month and a half away from Chat GPT's birthday. Pretty
Well, I
crazy what can
can't
happen in a year.
I can't wait actually until um, the vision is introduced. It's supposed to be happening like within the next couple of weeks, where you can upload a picture or a drawing and have even of a like a flow chart of a software process, and it seems to, from the demos I've seen, it seems to understand um, processes that are illustrated, and it can, like if you're designing a software product, for example, you could give it a flow chart and it would actually design that software product. I know it can do web interfaces that way too, just from drawing a diagram on a piece of paper and taking a picture of it and giving it that.
I,
But
I
automating that would be amazing.
yeah, I just popped in the GPT for today, and I saw that I had the vision thing for uploading an image, so I
Oh,
just was playing around with it, and I was just having it look at like a sales page and see if it could like analyze the sales page structure and make a framework out of it, and it was doing it. It's kind of
oh,
cool.
nice. I've
I
been
didn't even,
waiting for that access for a while.
yeah, I'd seen some people have it the last week or so. It started getting rolled out, so I mean, I imagine it'll probably be available in your account here pretty soon if it's not right now. But yeah, then adding that into this, yeah, it's gonna open up some cool possibilities. Um, and I like literally just before this call, I just started playing with it, and so I was just trying to see what it could do. And
I wonder when they're going to add it to the API. I mean, even for robotics, it'll be pretty amazing. I saw a demo where one guy took a picture of his living room and basically said, if I needed to get to the fridge, tell me how I get there. And the thing was basically guessing where the fridge would be, and it told him where to go. And then he'd take a picture of the next corner, and it would tell him. It basically guided him right to the fridge, which is pretty amazing.
wow, what a time to be alive!
Yeah, very exciting.
Very much so. Well, thank you, Chris, for showing us the breakdown of how to make some automations in Make, and I think for everyone watching this, get your creative juices flowing for what might be possible within your own workflows, or or working with someone like Chris or who already develops inside of Make is helping bring some of your ideas to life. Pretty cool stuff. I know I'm going to get my hands dirty a little bit with some ideas I've got, but Chris, I know you help people as well put these things into action. If someone's interested in connecting with you to chat more about working with you or just to connect with you in general, talk about AI and automations, how do they get a hold of you?
They can reach me at chris@ProfitLab.ai, and I'll provide you with some documentation for today's demonstration with that basically it'll walk you through this process. And then I'm also in the community, reach out anytime.
All right. Well, awesome, Chris. Thank you so much. As Bruce says, this makes all of this automation feel so much more accessible for us non-coders. And I do agree. Thank you so much for breaking it down. And until next time, we'll see you inside the community and on our next mastermind call. But otherwise, thank you guys for tuning in live and catching the replay. Let us know what you thought in the comments once we get this posted. And we'll see you guys on the other side.
Thanks
Cheers,
for
y'all.
having me.